Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today we are discussing the second generation of the themed Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Chronograph Safari. That's exactly what we have right here. This watch is substantial. Make no mistake, reference 26470ST, 42 millimeters in diameter, 14.6 millimeters thick from lug to lug, just the case. It's 54 millimeters across the wrist, but if we measure these intermediate links, the plots, then the total distance horizontally across the wrist is a beefy 58.1 millimeters. This watch came out in 2014. And one of the nice things about the Offshores is that they've had a lot of styling stability since the origin in 1993. So there's very little planned obsolescence with these models. It is big. It wears like a 44 millimeter conventional watch, so you need to think of this as oversized. Although it's not as thick as it could be, it's not going to fit underneath the tightest of dress cuffs. Let's do a down the barrel shot to give you a good idea of how this watch fits. I believe you can wear this watch on a wrist my size and up, but any smaller, you're going to have some issues here. You're going to want to seek something like a Royal Oak Chronograph that's a little bit more compact. The Offshore feels like, at least on a bracelet, you want a 16 centimeter circumference wrist or larger. The bracelet is substantial, but it's also an important part of the value of the watch and its identity as a Royal Oak. As the original Royal Oak of 1972, designed by Gerald Genta, it was designed from the outset to be a piece of jewelry that had a watch attached. So the integration of case and lugs and bezel and bracelet was part of the original design concept. And when Emmanuel Guet created the Royal Oak Offshore for 1993, most of the models that were marketed featured some sort of a strap. And while the strap is sporty and fun and cool and casual, nevertheless you lose all of the hand-finished metal and the all-of-a-piece integrated look that was the original intent of the Royal Oak designer. So you get all of that back here, as it's a rare Offshore on a full bracelet, which means all the little hand-finished elements like the shoulder bevel, the satination across the plots and center links, the integration of bevel with case bevel, all of this is included, and the watch is richer for it. We have removable links fixed in place by screws, which is how it should be done, giving the end user easier access to swapping out links. This can be tough to do with proprietary screws that don't feature a flathead or with pin sleeves, which require a block and a punch. It is a double folding deployant with twin trigger action, so you have to press both to pop it open. It's a sequential close with the logo closing second. Thick gauge steel here in media blast and satination. Then we roll to the case where you can see the strap or the bracelet, either way, is held to the case using screws and bars, which is a more secure arrangement than spring bars. It's also more expensive to implement, but I like it on an expensive watch. One of the characteristics of this generation of the Royal Oak Offshore is the use of ceramic chronograph pushers and a ceramic crown shoulder. You can see that the crown shoulder is hexagonal in shape, which is the same as the bolts in the bezel. We have a little micro beveling on the edges of the chronograph pushers, which I love, as we have both satin and polish on these tiny pieces manually executed, along with micro beveling on the crown guards, which you can see is present. It's a narrow polished bevel. We also have a screw-down crown for 100-meter water resistance. The bezel has several different layers. First, the gasket, which was only slightly visible on the original Royal Oak, becomes a little bit broader and a more prominent styling feature of the watch on the Royal Oak Offshore. The bezel has a satin outer face that's very narrow, then a broad sloped polished edge, and then it's vertically satinated across the top. These are not screws, these are bolts. That's how they can be aligned all the way around. There are actually nuts inside the case to retain the bolts. They're also made of steel. On a standard Royal Oak, this would be gold bolts, generally white gold bolts. Here it's steel. Mega Tapisserie dial, we have the shades of the Savannah, as this is the Safari model. We have applied Arabic numerals, AP logo, high polished hands. We have a sunken date, because this is a modular chronograph. You can see the center lines of the chronograph pushers are above the center line of the crown. That's because the base movement sits below the chronograph movement. That's the same reason we sort of stare down through the watch to the date, because the chronograph is on top, the base movement with the date is on the bottom, so we're looking through a magnifier through a tunnel that allows us to see that date. Once you screw the crown out, you have the ability to activate hacking or stop seconds. There's also a quick set function, so you can rapidly cycle the date. We have a tachymeter scale outboard, which can be used with the chronograph seconds hand to gauge the speed of an object, such as a race car over a kilometer, or perhaps out in the savannah on safari, a lion or a cheetah. There's a little bit of lume, but you can see this variety of superluminova is not the brightest. On the reverse side, manufacturer base caliber, Audemars Piguet 3126 with a 3840 Dubois de Praz vertical clutch chronograph module. We have a bidirectional winding system for smoothness and ceramic bearings to improve the efficiency and also reduce maintenance needs. It's a 22 karat rotor, which is refreshing in an era of 21 and 18 karat rotors, with the coats of arms of the Audemars and Piguet families to remind you that AP is the oldest continuously family owned and operated watchmaker in the business. Beat Haldemand might dispute that, but he is a one-horse shop. AP is a much larger enterprise. Automatic winding, energizing a 50 to 55-hour power reserve. We've got this Batwing style full balance bridge with a free-sprung Gyromax balance, which adds considerable amounts of shock resistance. It beats away at 3 hertz or 6 beats per second. All of this pivoting on 59 joules. The joule count is high because it includes the joules both for the base movement and for the vertical clutch chronograph module. And because it is a vertical clutch module, you can see how the chronograph seconds hand starts up without any jump or stagger because there's no play in a vertical clutch. Lots to love here. Hand finishing, and lots of it because of the presence of a bracelet rather than a strap in one of the most popular modern offshore model configurations. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.